Hello, everyone. This is Archit Kadicharla, and you're listening or watching to Signal from Noise. Welcome. As you know, this is a podcast focused on gleaning some signal amidst all the noise about AI in the AECO space. Today, we have with us Lalitha Krishnamoorthy, who's the VP of AI and leader of digital all things at Stantec, who's based in the US. Lalitha, welcome to the Signal from Noise podcast.
Thank you so much, Archit, for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Lalitha, before we go any further, maybe for folks listening in, watching, tell us about Stantec and your role at Stantec, just to set the stage.
Absolutely. Stantec is roughly about 34,000 people company. We're a global design and architecture firm, headquartered in Canada, with offices in almost every country around the world. We focus across 6 business lines. So buildings, infrastructure, water, energy sector, mining, and environment services. So we've got these 6 different business lines that we support the design and architecture efforts, and a big and as part of the architecture, engineering, and construction industry vertical that we are in, there is obviously that industry vertical is not isolated from all of the digital and AI transformation that's happening. I joined Stantec almost 2 years ago to lead up the AI transformation and take Stantec through what is it actually going to take for us to be an AI driven business as we go forward, just like all the other industries are transforming, and some of them have digitally transformed completely in the last couple decades. We are also looking at what is it that we need to be doing in order to be successful in the next 5 to 10 years.
Super. I think that's a great setup and context because I think these are the kind of questions that, listeners and viewers would want to understand about how you're driving that transformation and that journey. But before we talk about that journey, let's talk about your journey. You have a PhD in neurosymbolic AI. That sounds very Big Bang Theory. Tell us about it.
Yes, absolutely. My passion for math and computer science started really early. And as you can imagine, a lot of kids, when you are in high school, that's kind of your the bit changing, they call,
Mhm.
when you really decide what you want to do, or at least this is where what I'm interested in, sort of. My undergraduate degree was actually in electronics. It had nothing to do with computer science. Um, and uh, and my final year in engineering was when my project was a single arm robot. So like, it was a robotic arm, very simple assembly language programming. And back then it was an x86 processor that we used in engineering college. And that really, was my, I would, even when I think back at my journey, I feel that was one of the most fascinating things for me, was using basic assembly language programming to manipulate the robotic arm and just getting it to lift things and move, right? And I was very intrigued by the fact that, if I can do this much with ALP, assembly language, what is this software thing that they talk about that can make this smarter, faster, bigger, better? And I gravitated towards getting my master's in computer science. So I jumped from electronics to computer science. And that's a key message I want to send, because a lot of people feel, oh, I took electronics and I'm stuck there. They don't feel like, I have to study an undergrad in computer science to get a master's and a PhD. And that's kind of my undertone message here is, so I did make that shift very early on. And my master's, I actually gravitated towards artificial intelligence. And my master's thesis was in neural networks and fuzzy logic. This in between state of maybe that humans have, that we feel very comfortable with, because it's just, I don't know. It's maybe. My answer is in yes or no. Was very intriguing to me is, how does neuroscience, how do machines understand maybe? Because so far it's all binary, right?
Mm.
It's very Boolean. That's what machines speak. So that was really my focus, and that got me started in my thesis. And where I wanted to focus my research was, how do you bring the symbolic reasoning and natural language to these neural networks? How do you get these machines to understand? And already AI understands patterns. It's all about patterns, understanding these trends. But how, if you add some reasoning to it, then what happens?
Hmm.
And that was really my focus with neurosymbolic computing, with my PhD thesis. And it led me to understand that reproducibility of machine learning models, even just reproducing your any model, your ML model, from a development environment to a QA environment to a production environment, is actually three different,
Hmm.
versions of it. You can't just take it and copy paste like you would do software development today,
Hmm.
right? So that was my driver for it, and in a nutshell, that's where my focus was.
I'm going to pick up on the last point. By the way, the maybe is an interesting sort of, I guess, catchphrase here that we might come back to. But the one that I want to pick up right now is your comment about the. I'm just blanking out for a second here. The part where you talked about, gosh, this is so embarrassing. I've just blanked out for a second here. I'm sure we can edit this out.
No
Um,
worries.
so what was the last comment you made, Lalitha, about
Was around software development, right? In
exactly.
basic software development. Yeah,
Thank you very much. I must be getting old.
sure.
So that's a great segue because that's something I think there is a lot of curiosity and sort of eagerness to more about. And what I mean by that is, I think in a classic sort of product development environment, whether you're doing hardware or software, there's the classic sort of business strategy to product strategy to user needs, requirements, definitions, and those PRDs going into sort of development teams and cascading, whatever, however you're building it. And lo and behold, whether it's a quarterly or annual releases, things of that nature, right? So there is that whole sort of framework for product development in a conventional sense. So how do you look at product development in an AI lens? And maybe
Hmm.
the sort of pretext to this could be, when you think of your role in Stantec, are you doing sort of more sort of driving AI into business processes or automating business processes using AI workflows or a variant thereof? So I know there's a couple of pieces to this question, but maybe the second part is where we start and then get to the sort of how do you develop products in an AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Stantec, as I lead our, AI strategy, we have to kind of parse this, because our clients, our focus at Stantec has always been an AI strategy. The way that we've defined it is extremely client focused. Let's be honest that not all clients are, eagerly jumping up and down saying, I'm ready to get on the AI bandwagon, right?
Yep.
So we got to move at the pace at which our clients are moving. We have to meet them where they are in this journey based on their appetite, their velocity.
Yep.
So one of the fundamental ways by which we are designing our strategy for Stantec, and what I've done is look at where our clients are, what that segregation looks like, and then work at their level and comfort.
Mhm.
There are clients who have completely iron fenced themselves, said, we're going to watch the market, we're going to see where this bubble goes, and then we'll decide. And that's totally okay because they are not in the comfort zone yet. And that's totally okay. There's a lot of fear and concern about AI, right? So, and given we in the AEC industry, it's extreme amount of compliance, regulations, and policy, because everything we touch is civil infrastructure, buildings, infrastructure, transportation, water. This is core civil infrastructure.
Mhm.
So we have to be super careful and compliant with how we're doing these things. And AI at this point is not at the level of, in some cases, specifically generative AI. I'm not talking about traditional AI, which has been around for decades now, quite vetted, right, in banking and other industries. So we meet them where they are, these clients who are like, you know what, Lalita, I don't want to do anything with AI right now,
Hmm.
until I've seen some other proof, right? Then there's clients who are making small, medium investments. They are doing pilots, they're building prototypes with limited amount of data. They're trying to use tools like Copilot, to get some efficiency because they see their neighbors, they see their peers, they see their competitors, And they don't have the horsepower, honestly, and the kind of money to make these big investments, right? These are the small medium businesses that want to gain efficiency. And where they are bottlenecked a little bit is not understanding what are the rules of this game. Where does where does governance fit in? What does it mean to be compliant? Is GDPR sufficient, or do I need to worry about the European Union AI Act, the White House AI Act? India's coming up with its own AI Act. So how do you work in a global way? So that's their big thing. Their big question is: we know how to build prototypes,
Hmm.
we know how to use these models that are available, but we just don't know how to structure it. What is the SOP?
Yeah.
And who's at fault if something goes wrong? They don't quite know that. And then there's these big ones that are making significant investments. They are going all the way. They're partnering with these large technology vendors like Microsoft, with Adobe, with Google, with IBM, and they're really going all the way. And their bigger concern is just that next level of maturity, right? Because if you look at this journey, this AI journey that I'm trying to show you, is where those clients are kind of at is this ethical? Is this trustworthy AI? How do I explain myself if there's an internal audit or an external audit? Because big companies are worried about that. They have the money to invest, but they have to look at scale, latency, performance on one side. How do I scale this? To maybe they have 50,000 people globally. How do I scale this bot, RAG application, or whatever it is that they're building? And then the second piece to this is, how do I explain myself tomorrow if this gets into a legal situation?
Hmm.
So, as you can see, clients who say no to everything, clients who are like, I know how to build a prototype, but I don't know how to be governed. And then the bigger ones who are like, I put in a lot of money into this thing. How do I get the performance and ROI? So that's the trajectory we have currently going on with AI, which it also answers a little bit of the other question you asked is, how is this different from traditional software development? As I said, this one looks very different, no? The pattern, because software development traditionally is very rule based.
Hmm.
Take banking application, or a very simple example would be like your calculator app on your phone. The output is already known. So these are very deterministic
Mhm.
models that are used to drive basic software development, how we've known it. Um, and developers make a lot of decisions in the software model development, product development life cycle. At every stage, they make these things about this one I'm going to automate, this unit test is needed, this functional test is needed, this regression is needed. A lot of this is very much focused on individuals, the developers, their skill set, because sometimes they optimize the code. Some developers won't even write comments in the code. Like we've seen all of those flavors of how this deterministic way of developing software and logic is very rule based. And now we're moving into this AI development where it distinctly differs, is in two main things.
Hmm.
The first is it's data driven. It is not driven by deterministic model. Today I can tell you this is the answer. Tomorrow, after I've learned a little bit more about you, I'll give you a different answer. So these are probabilistic models, right? They're driven. And again, depending even within probabilistic solutions, AI development, the second thing it differs. So it's very data driven and very data heavy.
Mhm.
The second thing is the nobody knows the answer. The accuracy varies. So if you were to say, what is your SLA for a software product that you deliver? You'll say 99.9%. You can't really say 99.9% with any AI model today out there, because they keep getting, they're learning, they're getting better by the day based on the patterns, based on what you're feeding them. So in a lot of ways, there is a framework and a very different way of how you approach creation and development of an AI product. The entire design thinking aspect, and the focus is not so heavy on the UI UX with traditional software products.
Mhm.
It's always about, who do you need to build a software product? People will say, I need a front end developer, I need UI UX person, I need a full stack developer, a back end developer, and boom, done.
Hmm.
Uh, but with AI, the question then really starts with, what is the problem you're trying to solve? It's
That's
not a feature. So yes, it's very distinctly
that
different thinking.
that's a great point because I think in a way, right, this is, what I'm also trying to glean amidst all the noise is at the end of the day, AI exists to solve a business problem. People want business outcomes, and therefore this is the way to get there. So I think somewhere in all this sort of hoopla about AI, people sometimes sort of lose sight of this. But a
Mm-hmm.
couple of things you mentioned really struck me, right? One is this sort of, it's almost like an AI maturity framework or this journey that different sets of clients of yours are on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure others in the industry. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you have to take probably different types of approaches for different types of clients, given their sort of, like you said, maturity, knowledge, risk aversion, experimentation, muscle, talent, all of that. So that's, I think, a good way for people to think about their end customers in terms of where they are on the journey and meet them there, like you said. The other thing that struck me was about the two other things. One is ethical AI, and we should come back to that. And
Mm-hmm.
you started describing the differences about product development in classic sense versus the AI sense, right? One is data driven and then the deterministic versus
Mm-hmm.
probabilistic. So how do you, is there just getting down to the brass tacks? And you mentioned sort of, full stack developer, UI, UX, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
UX is not as critical, et cetera, et cetera. How do you think about setting up sort of organizations to build products like these?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. It is not that, you know, classical software development teams and agile teams and squads, right? The squad model that everybody's familiar with is not necessary because what we're dealing with is legacy systems, legacy applications, legacy data sources, and disparate number of systems,
Hmm.
right? We were not born with AI. So now as we're trying to think about what does AI mean to my business is the bigger question. What is the problem we're trying to solve? And for this problem, is AI the feasible solution? So when you think not everything, you don't need a hammer to kill an ant, right? That is the point.
Yeah.
And so you don't need something as heavy and expensive as AI to solve everything to gain efficiency. We have been gaining efficiency through automation, through test suite automation, code automation. For ages, DevOps has been there for a long time.
Hmm.
We don't have to pretend that you're recreating the wheel. What you're doing is adding intelligence, cognitive intelligence to these workflows and processes and services. And there is a place for it from an AI standpoint. So all of us in the scientific community, when we talk about it is, you use AI where it is applicable.
Hmm.
You don't say, I have a problem with, let's say you want to optimize your banking transactions or identify fraud transactions within your specific use case. Okay, the first thing you want to do is there an AI feasibility here? Is it necessary here for me to
Mhm.
apply generative AI?
Hmm.
Or is this a traditional AI question where you kind of say, you know what, I actually need to go the route of ML?
Mhm.
This is not a Gen AI solution to be
Yeah.
solved. This
Yeah.
is not about content generation,
Yeah.
or content creation or content probing, right? And this is where I think people kind of miss the first couple of steps in their organization. When they talk to me, they say, well, I've got to set up a team of 20 people. Okay, but if all of your 20 people are Gen AI engineers, who understands data? Who
Yeah.
understands data systems?
Yeah.
Who understands back-end connectivity across these things? Who understands cloud storage? So what you're going to calls for to answer, even more into how should you set up the team? I'll tell you how I've done it is it's a cross-functional team.
Mhm.
AI is about domain expertise.
Mhm.
You're going to need people who actually understand the business domain, is what I mean. Because it's a problem after all. And why are you solving the problem? Not because you have tech in your hand.
Hmm.
You're solving because the business has a need.
Yeah.
And so, where people miss is the first couple of steps, the feasibility assessment, the problem statement, and they just keep going down the path of I picked the right AI model off of Hugging Face. And that's a very disruptive approach. So, you set up a team that is cross functional, has business domain expertise. You need to bring the business to the table. And they are a key stakeholder in helping you figure out what is the right data and how will they measure the accuracy. The testing is on them, not on. the software teams like traditionally how it used to happen.
It's a great sort of framing there, because I think the more I think about it, what is striking me and what I've seen is I think the role of the product person becomes that much more crucial versus the classic engineering horsepower. Because and the product person is ideally somebody who understands the domain to a pretty good extent. But even if they don't, they have enough of a working knowledge to say, how do I
Mhm.
turn the domain into the business problem to the development side of the product, right? So that's
Yes,
how is that a good way to sort of think about?
absolutely, Archit. You nailed it because that's really what it is you do need product centric folks who understand how these bricks need to be put together, these Legos.
Mhm.
And the glue there is really the business.
And
And yeah, that partnership is critical.
super. So you touched upon something else, the generative side versus the ML side. My sense is people are getting too excited about all things Gen AI and kind of ditching the sort of more conventional, hey, machine learning can help you solve a lot of problems.
Mhm.
What's been your observation? Is that true, or people are finding some middle ground, or where are we in that journey?
I think, see, there is a place for both, right? And the problem is people are confusing the two. They think AI just came out in 2021.
Right.
It didn't. It's been there for decades, and it's the backbone. Traditional machine learning models have been, the backbone for some of the largest financial institutions and insurance institutions in all of North America and globally. So these have been well trained and automated models that exist. Generative AI really, in my opinion, picked up a lot of, rep and steam is because this is the first time, where such powerful technology has been put in the hands of a kindergarten,
Hmm.
right? Let's be
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
First graders are using this tech to write their homework.
Yeah.
When did this happen ever in technology? Cloud did not come in the hands of kids. ERP never came. Digital
Hmm.
tools and technologies never came directly in the hands of consumers.
Hmm.
But this is one of the first times when something so powerful, this tech, has made it directly in the hands of consumers. And they're like, I can do anything I want with it because now I know I can. I mean, nobody tells them how to set up their environment, right? And so it has really picked up a lot of velocity just because of the fact that people can use it for multiple uses. And to that point, where there is a need for it is absolutely for, you know, if you want to think about it as some of the common use cases that we see for Gen AI is clearly content generation. It is generative artificial intelligence. It is for generating content,
Mm.
text, images, videos, right? And so a lot of it is heavy on the creative side. And as a part of that, it allows you the simple natural language interface, which allows you to query and interrogate whatever results it's coming back with.
Mhm.
When you now apply this to solve high accuracy needed applications, mission critical applications, that's where you get into this fundamental problem where, including Copilot, you see hallucinations.
Mhm.
And then we start talking about human in the loop. I mean, think about running the largest stock market in the world and saying, I need a human in the loop before I can, process your stock trade. Impossible.
Not going to
Because
happen.
every millisecond, not going to
Yeah.
happen. Would you use generative AI there and say, wait till I get Lalita on the phone to approve this? I mean, you've lost money right there. So there is a place for it. And this is confusion of everything is AI is I think is a worry that I have. And I posted some blogs on this just because I want to separate out traditional ML from generative. Then you pick, oh, within generative, these are the things that it's been known to provide the level of accuracy and efficiency and effectiveness. And that's where you use this. And if that doesn't work, if you're on a mission critical application, you should not be looking at generative AI. That's not your right place. Healthcare,
So a couple of
right?
things. I think what we're going to do is, I think when we post this on LinkedIn, I want to make sure I link out to your blogs, because my sense is this particular segment is going to be quite listened to or heard or forwarded or shared, because it's an important distinction, and for people to understand what to use when, where,
Mhm.
why. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
so
Sure thing.
Let me segue into something else here. And I know we
Mhm.
want to keep this sort of bite size, sort of sitcom size, but the conversation is fascinating. So I'm gonna, take the liberty to push it by a couple of more minutes.
Sure.
Two things. I guess one is sort of since you talked about product people, the other side of it is just how do you think about talent,
Mhm.
especially in the sense about representation in the AI world, right? And
Mhm.
this is the fifth edition of the podcast I'm doing, and I'm really grateful that this finally we've got a woman on the show, woman leader, technologist, product person. So, Lalitha, how do you think about sort of uh, encouraging more women or creating more pathways for more women to be involved in AI?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a passion piece for me, Archit, personally. And I'll tell you a little background here. Um, when I was in grad school, and this story has gone on quite a bit, with several of my women peer group as well as we share our experiences, when we were in grad school, when we were getting our PhDs, when we were early on in our careers, what kind of support system would have helped us, get to certain places sooner, and take more risks, and how do we truly support each other in this journey, right? And like you said, there's not a lot of people like us who are there that the next generation can look at and say, look, I want her job, right?
Mhm.
And there is a very interesting quote that says that, women specifically have to see somebody in that role to feel comfortable that they can do that job,
Interesting.
just the way that we're made. And so we gotta have these role models.
Hmm.
We gotta have these safe space where they can come and talk about the fact that, this job isn't right for them, or what should I be thinking about, for my next move? How do I grow in my career, right? If you're dead ended, and that aggression is not, looked at, and discounted as aggression instead of looking at it as an ambition, which they have every right to have. So, based on all of these data points, I sit on the advisory board for National Girls Collaborative Project.
Hmm.
It's based out of North America, funded through NSF, and I sit on the advisory board there. And this is really what we do: is try to do not just inspiring girls and women to pursue careers in STEM, because that happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago. It's still important because the STEM gap is still there, but I think the kids who want to do it and pursue it have started moving in that direction. So I'm happy with the progress we've made in showing them that these roles are possible, whether that's a NASA scientist, or you want to work in research, or you want to work in any of the industries. Today, we can point certain women there in that industry and say, you can look at her. So it's not like we have an empty seat. There is still some big gap in the Fortune hundreds in terms of the CEO and women representation. So there is still that pretty big gap there in terms of women representation. But when you look at how do you help them, what we are focused more on now is building the confidence for them to be able to ask for these roles and these positions and take these rotations as difficult as they might be. Is don't discount yourself until the process
Hmm.
discounts you. And to really lose that imposter syndrome, they say, where I'm not good enough, I can't do it. And that typically we've seen in girls starts around middle school, believe it or not. It
Hmm.
used to be high school, now it's middle school where they say, you know what, I can't math, I can't do science. And showing them the art of the possible, that even generative AI today, the content generation, even if they are on the creative side of art and design and architecture and visuals, that's all AI still. That's still touching tech. And so they're already doing it.
Hmm.
Um, you know so I think using some of these platforms like NGCP. I also sit on the Texas Championship Board, which again is funded by University of Texas Austin. And as being one of the large state schools, there's a lot of focus on how do we set this up the right way for the next couple decades for these kids,
Lalita,
and give them the platform. So
Lalitha, let me also put in a short plug. I know from your LinkedIn post that you're offering two spots for mentorship for the year. I don't know if they're taken,
Yes.
but for folks listening in, do look up Lalitha, look at her LinkedIn. She's offering a couple of year-long mentorship opportunities. So grab them while they're still available.
Absolutely. And it's a tradition I started about 5 years ago. I can't believe it. And, I never disclose who these mentees are. And, it's kept super confidential. But I just started it 5 years ago thinking, let's see where this goes, because I got to do more than being on these boards and doing things, as part of these bigger organizations. Absolutely. They have
Right.
gravity.
Sure.
But I thought, let's see what I can do. And I just posted this last week. And I have to tell you, I've got to do a lot of work to go through everybody who's reached out. But this is a small way of me giving back to all the people that gave me when I was there. So yeah, it feels good.
Awesome, awesome. Lalita, great conversation. I wish we could go on for another half hour. Uh, I want to be respectful of your time as well as, make it sort of, digestible for people because there's a lot of insights in here in the 30-minute slot that we had. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I really enjoyed the conversation, including the brain fade around, somewhere in the first 5 minutes that I had, but that's all good, all part of the fun. But again, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on your show, Archit. Good luck.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.